All right, hereby call the June 11th, 2024 study session to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Beck,
Here.
Vice Mayor Edwards.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Crawford.
Here.
Councilmember Finn.
Here.
Councilmember Patena.
Here.
Councilmember Dunn.
Here.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. The only item on the agenda for today is the presentation for the Peoria Police Department and their traffic safety initiatives. I will now turn this over to Peoria Police Chief Thomas Interieri for his presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Beck, members of the council, Mr. Darwin, and city staff. Appreciate you all being here today as we talk about the traffic safety initiative for the Peoria Police Department. So, as we all have had several discussions about concerns with traffic-related incidents throughout the city, I think I shared my position that it's not just a Peoria issue, but I think a valley-wide issue, as we've noticed driving behaviors have been somewhat out of line and creating hardships for a lot of drivers, a lot of families, and unfortunately some victims. So with that, we came up with a plan for the Peoria Police Department, for all of us as an organization, to take a stand and take what I call is a zero tolerance approach. This zero tolerance approach, otherwise known as our mission, the goal for that is for us to increase the awareness, right? Traffic safety awareness on the part of all of our citizens and our employees through a highly visible enforcement program and approach, meaning zero tolerance. If you see a violation, stop the vehicle and identify the driver, explain to them what it was that was observed, why it's a violation, what the consequences could be, and then look at it from either an enforcement or an education opportunity. The goal or the purpose behind this really is when we talk about drivers and behavior and traffic safety, it's all about modifying driver behavior, because driving behavior is what is creating a lot of the incidents that we're finding out, whether they be minor collisions, serious and/or fatals. Driver behavior has to be addressed holistically, not just within Peoria, but within the state. And I am talking to other officials at the state level as well as other chiefs about the importance for us collectively to be enforcing traffic laws. That driving behavior is the key component towards safety for us all. And then with that, this also provides us an opportunity as members of the Peoria Police Department to have a positive engagement with our citizens as we make contact with them on the roadways. To use this opportunity not just to identify the fact that there's a moving violation, traffic violation, there's a safety concern on our part for their well-being, but also some of the consequences that we can educate them about that we want to spare them and their families from. So how do we do this? So there is a concept known as DDACS, Data-Driven Approach to Crime and Traffic Safety. Since 2010, 2011, I've had the opportunity to teach this deployment model, if you will, to a number of agencies throughout the country, and as well as I've employed it at my previous agency with great success. By using the collected data as it pertains to traffic, more importantly, crime and traffic data, we're able to pinpoint specific areas that historically are considered areas of concern. For this, our traffic services unit did this specifically for accidents to find out where the highest incident of accidents were occurring, where violations would often occur yet go undetected or unenforced, and then zero in on those locations by setting up work groups, if you will. In addition to that, we utilize our radar trailers in some of those areas to then help us further solidify that mission and those locations as target areas for us. Our third plan, or step, if you will, is the traffic enforcement request process, where a citizen can contact us and specify a location and/or concern regarding what kind of traffic violations are going on, what kind of well-being concerns there may be for citizens, pedestrians, et cetera. And then we can use that information with follow-up information so that we can reach out to the citizen to gain further info or to advise them that we've been able to address the issue and we will continue to do so. And then the fourth is for us to utilize our social media and media relations unit to emphasize the importance of safe driving, driver behavior, awareness, and our partnership with the communications, our City of Peoria Department of Communications has been instrumental in helping us as well in this area too, so that we're looking at it not just from the PD media relations, but also the city. So our objectives, as I've stated already, we want to change those driving behaviors. That's the most important piece. Make sure we have positive contacts with each and every driver and passenger if they're occupied by more than one. Promote the idea of safe driving habits and awareness. We want to make sure while we're out there, out and about, patrolling the streets, that we're contacting pedestrians, whether they be on the sidewalks, on the roadways, bicyclists, et cetera, on ways that they could be safer as they're traveling throughout our city, and continue to collaborate with the Office of Communications. As you can see here on the slide, they created these two slides down in the bottom right, which I thought was both telling and very powerful. The goal behind the communications here is to make it personal so everybody can relate to it. Sorry. All right. So within the PD, our traffic services unit, also known as our motors, and then also our vehicular crimes unit have been tasked to assist with this. We've adjusted hours, and we will continue to do so moving forward. We're going to be a very fluid and very flexible organization in order to ensure that we are modifying driver behavior and our citizens can travel the streets that have been, where the laws have been enforced and they're safer for them to do that travel. As we adjust those schedules, we're also looking at staffing additional officers through the utilization of Arizona Governor's Office of Highway Safety grant programs that we've benefited from, and we will continue to seek out additional funding from them to help us pay so that we can supplement off-duty or overtime, officers on overtime to help support that mission. With that being said, our Patrol Operations Bureau, so both the North and the South districts, they understand that traffic enforcement and traffic safety is a priority of mine, and they've been asked to, in between calls for service that they're responding to, any available time that they have to get out there and make contacts, be engaged, and again, have that zero tolerance approach so that they can increase their visibility. Every time an officer makes a traffic stop, potentially 20 to 50 vehicles are driving by, seeing that and witnessing that, and they're putting on, it's a constant reminder that we're out and about. So that's the goal, is to maintain that type of contact and that type of communication, both verbal and nonverbal. Okay. All right. So this started towards the end of April. And I have the entirety of April's totals in here, but they were slightly increased from, I looked at the first 3 months, January, February, March, and looked at those totals, and I wish I had put it up there, but I just realized this before the presentation, so I'm going to speak about this. You may not see it, but what you will see is I want you to look at the May totals. So the May totals have where this initiative has been up and running for the entirety of the month of May. The average for the first 3 months, and April somewhat reflects this, is the number of contacts that we averaged was about 1,134. So with our zero tolerance initiative, we went to 2,039, so that's a significant increase. In addition, you go down to misdemeanor DUIs. Right, we've had a couple of cases that we suspect impaired driving is a part of here in the city this year. So DUI enforcement is important to ensure safe streets. Average of the first 3 months is 22. May alone, we did 44 arrests. We identified 44 drivers just for a misdemeanor. And in extreme DUIs, the average was 9 up to 19. So those are some significant numbers. On average, there were 37 DUIs on average in the first 3 months. And in May is 72. So it's almost doubled across the board on all of those spectrums. Citations down towards the bottom. The average was 487. We did 862. And I know that many of these officers are writing written warnings. So, you know, if you look at the contacts made at 2,039 for the total of May, we wrote 862 by subtraction. You can see we did about 1,200 warnings, which is good because I don't want it to be a punitive exercise. I want I want the officers to have the opportunity to use it as an educational opportunity and a community engagement opportunity to develop that rapport and that relationship, and for people to understand the significance and the importance of safe streets. There we go. So since we initiated this program, moving forward with the zero tolerance approach, we've had some very positive feedback. Some of the community meetings that I've attended, some of the presentations and the opportunities I've had to speak with citizens at large, I've heard it from several people that they've noticed the increase throughout the city. In this case, we had 2 residents from up north that emailed us and commented and showed appreciation for the work that was being done. And I appreciate that. But I hear it from the clerk at the Olive Mart at 91st and Olive, right? I see you guys around all the time, which is great, right? That's what we want. That's why we are here. That's why we should be here. The DDAX model, data-driven approach to crime and traffic safety, is about visibility. It's about understanding what your neighborhoods are, where your areas of concern are, and to focus and develop shareholders, stakeholders within those communities, and then work collectively so that we can promote both safe streets and safe communities. That's going to be the foundation of our department moving forward in terms of how we operate. As you all know, there was a lot of media attention a few months ago about this West Valley Aggressive Driver Task Force, where all West Valley agencies have been in partnership with. It's a noble effort, and it is an appreciated one. We will have all the West Valley agencies here in Peoria June 26th. But for me, that wasn't enough, and that's kind of how we came up with this. Our folks are tasked with helping out these other agencies, and so as you can imagine, it's fairly infrequent that we are within the city, so this is why we're doing a department-wide initiative. Nonetheless, this is certainly a force multiplier. And the other thing that we could use is when they do come to our city, we can then dictate where we need them to work. So by utilizing and analyzing that data, we can have a very robust yet informed work group to target the areas that we need it the most. There we go. All right, moving forward. Like I said, traffic enforcement, education, one of our main priorities. Safe communities and safe streets. We will continue to look at ways of how we can be a force multiplier, whether it be through partnerships, staffing models. We are currently employing Corona Solutions, which is a software that is basically taking our CAD data, communications aided dispatch, all of our dispatch calls for service over the last few years, taking all that data and analyzing it to help determine where our areas of concern, our areas of focus should be, and then it will also help us develop staffing models. What kind of shifts our officers work, when they work, what hours, what days are of highest concern, as well as low points, so that we know where we should staff our personnel the best and most effectively. That software will also be able to, it'll be used for some of the specialty assignments as well moving forward. Technology, you know, as we know, technology is ever present in our society today, and there's a constant state of improvement. One of the areas I would like to explore is the use of photo safety within our school zones, specifically our school zones. Why? Because our school zones are having a number of issues with speeding vehicles, and those most vulnerable, our children, are at greatest risk in those school zones. So we are currently exploring what that would look like and how we can do that in a way that is both cost-effective to us, as well as provides the very best value in terms of providing a safe environment. I could talk further on that as it evolves. And then partnerships. Arizona Governor's Office of Highway Safety. I have a long history, a relationship with Arizona Governor's of Highway Safety, and with the new director, I met him just 2 weeks ago. We had a very good conversation. He looks forward to doing a lot of work with Peoria, and he was excited about some of our ideas and some of the directions we want to go. So I'm very confident about that partnership. NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, will be another one that I will look to formulate and establish a partnership with moving forward. Another great resource for us to reach out to for both education purposes as well as enforcement tools. And then, of course, our schools, right? Both the public schools, the charter schools, they all are important for us because they all serve our children. And businesses. Businesses are our stakeholders. So they're going to be a big piece of the puzzle in terms of solving some of these issues in some of these areas where we have a concern and helping us identify solutions to any concerns moving forward. And then as we bring the Real-Time Crime Center to the forefront and we kick that off, we're going to utilize that as part of our Safe Streets initiative, which will also include traffic safety related functions. With that, thank you.
Councilmember Patina.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, thank you for the presentation. I have a couple questions. One, when you said at the very first slide, zero tolerance. So if a citizen commits a traffic violation, will he automatically be ticketed, or will you leave that up to the discretion of the officer?
It's up to the discretion of the officer. Zero tolerance is that, hey, if you see it, I want you to make the contact.
Okay. And my second question is, your April and May project stats, almost every category, May was higher than April. Mm-hmm. Is that because you had almost twice as many contacts?
Well, April, we started off in April, but it wasn't the entire month.
Okay.
So it was probably about April 20th, around that point, where we started kicking off, and it took a little time to get it rolling full steam.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
That's why.
Councilor Crawford.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Just to piggyback on what Councilmember Patina asked, so was there any correlation with those numbers in May being attributed to Memorial Day?
Mayor, Councilmember Crawford, I don't have the specific breakdowns on the dates. I imagine, I know we worked a task force,
Okay.
but the numbers weren't, the preliminary numbers I was given weren't that significant to show that it accounted for the increase, no.
Great. And just one follow-up question as well. You mentioned problem areas or specific locations. Do you have those locations determined after analyzing the data this far this year? Or you're just still building that information?
Mayor, Councilmember Crawford, we're still building that. It's gonna take a little while, probably 6 months for us to, and understand when I say areas of concern or problem areas, these are typically, based on my experience, these are areas that we're all have become accustomed to as historic locations. But with growth and with development, as I expect, as things move forward up north and things continue to grow and expand, we will start to see some of those areas. When that occurs, we will bring it to our transportation engineering folks so that they are aware of, and I'm sure they'll probably be aware at the same time of what we're seeing so that we can then partner on the third E. It's education, enforcement, and the third is engineering, so.
Very good.
3 E's of traffic safety.
Well, thank you for all your efforts from you and your team. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Councilor Finn?
A couple of questions. Can you go back to the slide that had all the numbers on it? I just have a silly question, but I have to ask it. Yeah, right there. So the May contact for designated drivers and know your limits, what is that? I'm sure you
So-
didn't pull over a designated driver and say, nice work, I know these people in your car are just hammered.
Well, yeah.
We did?
That's pretty much it. So we contacted one driver who was driving for, a group of people that were hammered because they were hammered, so he was driving.
Nice, I'm glad I asked the question. Thank
Know
you.
your limits, to be honest with you, I don't recall.
Okay,
With my traffic
No problem.
background, I feel ashamed, but I think that's one of the newer things.
no worries. And if you, I think the next question, I'm not quite sure how to word it or phrase it, but we've added a lot of officers to kind of help coverage in the city. Is this won't be detrimental to that, correct? The focus on traffic isn't going to take away from what we've done with adding officers to be more responsive
No.
to things that are going on. It'll be sort of a complement to that. Is that the way I'm understanding it correctly?
Yes, so traffic enforcement has always been a patrol operations function.
Okay.
More often than not, it's not highlighted because calls for service or proactive activities, officers going out looking for crimes afoot, et cetera, are often promoted a little bit more so than traffic safety because, quite honestly, a lot of officers don't like to write tickets. Nobody likes to write somebody a ticket for speeding but it is one of our primary responsibilities as a patrol officer.
Okay.
So it's getting back to those fundamentals and emphasizing that as a priority. When we talk about promoting a safe community, safe streets is one of the biggest ways to do that.
Sure.
Because not only are we looking at people and contacting people that are maybe driving a little fast or maybe made an unsafe lane change or made a wide turn, but the few criminals that are in Peoria, they use our roadways for transportation. So if we're contacting them, whether they're on foot, by bike, or in vehicle because of a traffic violation, well, that's part of the crime-fighting model. So that's an added bonus.
Okay, great. And my last, it's somewhat of a question, somewhat of a statement, but the revenue generated from issuing citations to the city is tiny, as I recall, correct? The amount of money that comes back to the city as part of a citation, because it gets eaten up by the county and all these other different things. I remember having a conversation with a previous judge about that. So do you happen to know what comes back for every dollar?
I don't know
Okay.
offhand, but I do know you are correct to that regard, that I am aware that there is not a significant amount of money that the city benefits from citations.
Yeah, this is really kind of a question maybe for the public, that they
Yeah.
don't think this is some sort of revenue generating.
No,
You know.
and again, zero tolerance, not for enforcement for the purposes of
Understood.
writing tickets.
Yep.
But for education, for awareness and visibility. So I think that's the easiest way. Of course, there are times when you know, you're going to give some people, and the officer has that discretion to do that, you're going to give them a break, but, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So I've got three comments here. So I was contacted last week by a mom that her son had gotten pulled over. He was 17 years old, gotten pulled over, just graduated from high school. And she sent me a DM through Instagram on my private Instagram account saying, thank you for the treatment of her son and how our officers not only pulled him over, but that she saw him, that he was on Life 360, that he was doing like 22 miles an hour over the speed limit whenever he was on Happy Valley Road. So she actually appreciated the contact, just like I think a lot of us as parents would. I think it was 2 weeks ago, I talked about Asher, my now 16-year-old son, actually starting to drive and things like that. And he's in a vehicle that can't go over 50 anyway. So, you know, we've made very, very sure that he can't go very fast. But, you know, just like all of us as kids, you know, we've had a lot of speed-related issues in the city. We've had a lot of loss of life, unfortunately. Over the last couple of months, we've had a couple instances up in Mesquite District, unfortunately, where we've lost some kids. And, you know, this is very important for a lot of parents. It's a lot of, and the more that we actually put an emphasis on this and the more contacts we make, it's just nice to actually hear from parents that they actually appreciate what we're actually doing. So thank everybody in blue in here for what you guys are doing. Because the more we see blue, the less we see fire having to come and take people away, which is important, right? So I think we all want that as a city. So that's the first thing. Two, Real-Time Crime Center thought process. I know we talked about this in the past with the Real-Time Crime Center, with some of the cameras that we're going to be putting on and things like that. It might be from a data-driven solution later on. I know there's the Real-Time Crime Center conference in August, I believe it is, that's in Scottsdale. And one of the things that I've heard about is being able to have tracking on cameras for speed, just so we can actually build that data and then send and deploy utilizing your system as well, and utilizing that data-driven system to where that way we can actually kind of see where we're seeing those speeds come up. Not necessarily because we're actually ticketing off of a camera, but because we're able to see those speed-related results and be able to try to drive officers into that area. It's just something to think about from later on. And then I grew up in Missouri, not Missouri, but Missouri, which is deep south, Missouri, right? In our high school, now this was a long time ago, obviously, but in the high school that I went to, I remember getting a presentation from fire and police where they actually used the jaws of life on a kid that was actually stuck in a vehicle, and we had like kids throughout the whole thing, and the kid walks around, and we had like a mock funeral. I mean, we had the whole thing. You don't really see that stuff in the larger cities, I guess, or I haven't seen it out here. Do they do things like that locally? Have you seen anything like that here locally? Have we ever done anything like that in Peoria? We have. When was the last time when was the last time we did something like that? Okay. Well, that's depressing, but that's when they did it, was homecoming or prom? Oh, okay. I'm like, wow, that's, that would be horrible for that.
Yeah, Mayor, oftentimes departments will do that leading up to homecoming.
Okay.
Or the prom, just to bring awareness.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, we have experienced those tragedies during
Yeah.
that time as a
Yeah.
result. So,
I think maybe we want to look at trying to do that with PUSD and try to do one in the north and one in the south, maybe this fall, if we could.
Okay.
I just think it's important for us to try to impact these kids as much as possible. Obviously, we lost a young lady, recently. So it's like, all these factors, it's important. And the more we can actually try to, again, same thing. I mean, I remember having an accident as a kid, and it's not like I drove slow. And a lot of us, I'm sure, had the same issues. But it's those issues are going to happen. It's trying to slow them down in the process, or just try to get them to survive that as much as we can. So, just something to think about from that standpoint. So, cool. Please.
Mayor and Council, I just want to mention something that the the chief touched on, and that is the role that engineering can play in traffic safety. And as a result, some recent tragedies that happened in the Vistancia area, the police department and our engineering department have been meeting. We've met several times, trying to figure out if there's other engineering-related strategies that we could deploy to make our roads safer from a structural point of view. And so we're going to continue with those efforts. So as the chief mentioned, engineering can be a component to traffic safety. Line of sight to stop signs, making sure that traffic changes are clear, making sure that traffic indications are clear. We're working on that front as well. So it's not just all about enforcement and contacts. It's also about what we can doing from an engineering point to make our roads safer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, somebody that's been affected by DUI in my family, or a drunk driving incident and lost a family member to that, it's I hate seeing the numbers, but at the same time, you want to see these numbers. And because they're out there. And it's appreciated that you guys are actually making such a significant effort. So thank you for everybody putting time and energy into it.
Thank you.
Okay. And with that, is there any other questions, comments? Good? Nobody in the gallery? All right. No being further business, hereby declare a study session adjourned. Thanks.
The Mayor and City Council welcome you to the Peoria City Council meeting. As a courtesy to others, please silence all phones. If you would like to address an issue that is on the agenda, or if you would like to speak to the Council regarding a non-agenda item, please complete a speaker request form, which can be found in the front lobby of the Peoria City Council chambers or in the tray to the left of the speaker's podium. Please place the completed speaker request form in the second tray to the left of the speaker's podium labeled Request to Speak. All speakers will have 3 minutes to complete their comments. A countdown clock is easily visible on the left side of the wall behind the City Council dais. Only items listed on the agenda may be addressed by the Council. Since items presented as part of a speaker's request have not been listed on the agenda, and due to the requirements of open meeting laws, please be aware that your comments will be noted. The speaker's name will be called to speak at the appropriate time, in the order that the forms were received. Thank you for your interest and participation in the Peoria City Council meeting.
Good evening and welcome to Peoria City Council meeting. I hereby call the meeting of June 11th, 2024 to order. Those who are able, please stand for the invocation by Father James Kaleth from St. Charles Borromeo Church, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'd like to read a passage from Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, there's nothing I lack. In green pastures you let me graze, to safe waters you lead me. You restore my strength. You guide me along the right path for the sake of your name. Even when I walk through the dark valley, I fear no harm, for you are at my side. Your rod and staff give me courage. You set a table before me as my enemies watch. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Only goodness and love will pursue me all the days of my life. I will dwell in the house of the Lord for years to come. O God, we come before you with gratitude. We thank you for being a God of love who is with us now in this very room. You never leave us or forsake us. Your grace has brought us safe thus far, and your grace will lead us home, Lord. We thank you for making each of us in this room, every person we meet, every citizen of this city, and every city in your own image with the dignity and infinite worth. We thank you for the calling you have given every one of us to be good stewards of your creation, to love our neighbors as ourselves. I thank you this evening, God, for these, your servants, our mayor, our city manager, our city staff, and our city council members. I give thanks for the way of service they have chosen to take up on behalf of all of us here. We pray for wisdom, for strength, for courage to do what is right and good for all citizens. May we put the interests of others above our own. May we act with love for the common good. May we be good neighbors, recognizing your image in every person here. We thank you again for this council, our mayor, our city staff, our first responders, our hospital staff, and all those who work to make this place we call home such a wonderful city. We ask all this in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Beck,
Here.
Vice Mayor Edwards,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Crawford,
Here.
Councilmember Finn,
Here.
Councilmember Patena,
Here.
Councilmember Dunn,
Here.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. If anyone would like to address the council about a matter, please submit a speaker request form, which can be found at the entrance of the room to the clerk at this time. Now is for presentations. Next, I would like to recognize Councilmember Bill Patena, who will be presenting certificates of newly appointed boards and commissions members.
Thank you, Mayor. Usually when I come up here, I give you the same information, the number of boards and commissions we have, the number of people, but today I'm going to switch it up a little bit. So hang on to your seats. This could be pretty riveting. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to announce all of our boards and commissions. If any of these pique your interest, you might want to consider contacting the city clerk's office, asking for an application, and should be happy to send you one. So we have the Arts Commission, the Board of Adjustment, the Bond Advisory Board, Ad Hoc Committee, Citizens Commission on Salaries, Construction Board of Appeals, Design Review Board, Economic Development Advisory Board, Employee Benefits Trust Board, Historic Preservation Commission, Industrial Development Authority, Judicial and Public Defender Advisory Board, Municipal Development Authority, Parks, Rec, and Community Facilities Board, Personnel Board, Planning and Zoning Commission, Public Safety Retirement Board for Fire, Public Safety Retirement Board for Police, Quality of Life Committee, Veterans Memorial Board, Volunteer Firefighter Pension Board, and the Youth Advisory Board. We have, some of these boards meet monthly, some meet yearly, some meet anytime in between. So if there's anything, you want to give any amount of your time to the city of Peoria, we're happy to have you. Once again, you could just contact the city clerk's office. So when I call your name, will you come on down and get your plaque and be recognized? On Youth Advisory Board, Annika Navgari. Congratulations. Thank you. Youth Advisory Board, Mariano Ortiz. Congratulations. Youth Advisory Board, Hayden Rush. Hey, congratulations. Youth Advisory Board, Aditi Sakar. Thank you and welcome.
Good, okay. Tonight, we have one CFD to run through as a council. As such, I would like to call the Vistancia North Community Facilities District Board meeting to order. Will the clerk please note the roll? We will now move to the consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. This is for the Vistancia North Community Facilities Board, just so we understand. Removal has been prior received for approval. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda for the VNCFD?
Second?
Please vote.
Councilmember Dunn, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Edwards and Dunn, and Finn? Councilmember Finn?
It's always fun. There you go. And it is 7-0, thank you. Let's see here. So it is 7-0. So we will now move on to the CFD regular agenda and introduce new business. I now recognize Mr. Sean Kendall, Peoria's Chief Financial Officer, to introduce 4R and 5R.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, we are here to discuss items 4R and 5R, which are necessary steps in order to issue bonds for the Vistancia North Community Facilities District. To start with, do this. Just again, a little bit of background about the Vistancia North District. It was formed in 2020. It covers the northern portion of the original Vistancia Community Facilities District, so it overlays that northern portion. And it was created in order to provide additional financing capabilities to cover some of the water and wastewater infrastructure that was not funded through the original CFD. The original CFD was formed in 2002, so it's kind of reaching its end of bonding life. So this was an overlay of that northern portion in order to finance the water infrastructure. Item 4R tonight is a public hearing on the feasibility report. This is a necessary step before we can issue the general obligation bonds. The report includes 4 items or 4 features. The first is the feasibility and benefits of certain public infrastructure. It includes a map of the location of the infrastructure and the area to benefit, an estimate of the cost to acquire and the timeline for completion, and then the plan of financing for the public infrastructure. Although the feasibility report includes infrastructure that will be completed in the future, I'm going to focus tonight just on the 4 items that we expect this particular bond issue to provide funding for. So the first one of those is the Westland Reservoir. This was completed in 2020. The majority of the costs for this were reimbursed through the Vistancia CFD. This is just the final kind of piece of it that we're picking up on that. The Vistancia Boulevard Lift Station and the Water Zone 6-7 Pump Station modifications were completed in 2021 and 2022 respectively, and we expect those to be reimbursed through this bond issuance. And then the lift station and the cap crossing will be completed sometime this year, and we will be reimbursing a portion of the cost of that. We don't think that we'll have enough proceeds to do all of it, but we'll be starting the reimbursement process for that. So item 5R is the resolution approving the sale and issuance of the general obligation bonds, and it also includes the approval of the feasibility report. We've set the amount not to exceed at $6 million. We don't really expect the bonds to be $6 million. Right now, it's looking more like 4.8. It really just depends on the interest rate at the time that we price the bonds, how much we'll get for those, but it's looking more in the neighborhood of 4.8. It's to purchase the water and wastewater infrastructure, and the debt service from the bonds will be based on a mill levy of $2.65 per $100 assessed value, and that $2.65 is the combined rate between the Vistancia CFD and the Vistancia North. So for the next couple of years, while Vistancia is still active, that will take up some of the rate, and Vistancia North will be the difference. And then once Vistancia's debt service is paid off, the Vistancia North rate will go up to the full $2.65. And that's what the debt service is based on. These bonds will have a 25-year term, and the developer provides a standby agreement and a letter of credit to back that up. And what that means is if at any point in time the mill levy does not generate enough revenues to cover the debt service, the developer steps in and makes those payments, and the letter of credit backs up that payment. We're allowed to draw on a letter of credit in case they don't make the payment. So the timeline for this is we are anticipating pricing these bonds June 24th or 25th, and then we will close the bonds in mid-July. And with that, I will take any questions.
Councilman, do I have any further? Councilman Schaefer.
Thank you, Mayor. Sean, thank you. Just a couple quick questions. Interest rate on the bond, I know that you said pricing based upon what the interest rates are. What is the interest rates today? I know it will change between now and the 24th.
Yeah, right now, they're just right around the 5% mark
5%.
is where we're at, maybe a little bit over that, maybe a little bit under that. But right now, we're looking at right at 5%.
5%. And then, Sean, quick question. So the 265, and I know that that's Vistancia and the North Vistancia combined. And then you said once the Vistancia bond is basically paid or goes away, then it will go up to the 265 for the North Vistancia.
Right.
What's the remaining timeline on that Vistancia bond? Is it
The Vistancia bond, the last debt service payment for the Vistancia bonds is July of 2026.
26?
So fiscal year 25, 26 will be the last year for property tax collections on Vistancia.
Great. And one last question, Sean. The 265 combined between Vistancia and North Vistancia, that's what we approved, I think, a couple weeks ago, right?
Correct.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay, no other further discussion. We'll now open public hearing for item 4R. Got to go through this whole process. Do any members of the public wish to speak on these specific items? No, we'll now close public hearing. Council, we will now move on to, well, I guess, do I have a second? Do I have to do the same thing for 5R?
Yeah, the 5R is actually the action that needs to be taken.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So we will now move on to item 5R. Council, do we have any further discussion on 5R? Nope. We will now, do I have a motion to approve the agenda item on 5R?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second? Second. Please vote. Councilor Dunn?
Councilmember Dunn, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And it passes 7-0. Thank you. There being no further business, I hereby declare the CFD board meeting adjourned. Now we have the consent agenda. We will now move on to the regular meeting consent agenda. The regular meeting consent agenda, just to make sure everybody understands where we're at, including myself. All items listed on the consent agenda are routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion unless requested for removal has been prior approved. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please vote.
Councilmember Dunn, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And it passes 7-0. Thank you. We will now move on to the regular agenda and introduce new business. I now recognize City Manager, Mr. Henry Darwin, to introduce 14R.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and council, the next item on the agenda addresses one of your top priorities, and that is water security. Deputy City Manager Travis Cutright drew the short straw, and he is, because of Kevin's absence, I think Kevin's off doing something down in South America. He's going to present a franchise agreement between EPCOR and the City of Peoria to provide water and wastewater services for your approval to place on the next general election ballot for Peoria voters' consideration. So this is a vote to put something on the ballot, and Travis is going to explain why we need your approval to place it on the ballot. So Travis, please.
Thank you, City Manager Darwin. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm excited to be here, sitting in for Deputy City Manager Kevin Burke as he zip lines through Costa Rica. And also, I'm doubly excited to come before Deputy City Manager Faust when he comes and explains that IAP to you guys again. So you've got that to look forward to. So, Mayor and Council, we come before you this evening to request the adoption of a resolution that will place the franchise agreement between the City of Peoria and EPCOR Water Arizona on the November 5th, 2024 general election ballot. So for the, we'll keep it simple, and we'll try to address these three questions. Who's EPCOR? What is the franchise agreement? What and when is the election? And so for the first two parts, I'm going to turn it over to Ben Ganados, who's the Development Agreements Coordinator for the Engineering Department with a history in the City Attorney's Office. So, Ben?
Yeah, thank you, Travis. Good evening, Mayor and Council. First, I want to discuss, I don't know how to use this thing.
You need me to?
There you go. Thank you. Anyway, I want to get into talking about who EPCOR is and what this company is we're contemplating entering an agreement with. They were formed in 1996 out of the city of Edmonton. It was a merger of their natural gas, power, and water enterprises. They operate throughout Canada, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. They bought Arizona American Water Company, which included service inside the city of Peoria. They have an existing franchise, which was previously approved in 2010 by the voters, set to expire in September 2025. They're a primary water and wastewater provider on Peoria's western boundary. Can you forward that a little bit? There is a map here that illustrates their service area within the city of Peoria. Go back one more. Maybe both of us don't know how to use this. So you can see the service areas that fall within the city limits. They serve Tierra del Rio. They have approximately 2,200 customers, and they would serve the southern portion of northern Peoria Gateway. Now I'll quickly go into what this franchise agreement entails. It's an agreement between the city and ACC, a recognized utility, for the use of the rights, ways, and easements within the city. The agreement specifies the term, the use area, and the fee to be remitted to the city. Pursuant to city charter, all franchise agreements must be approved by qualified electors, and all election costs associated with the franchise will be paid by EPCOR. Furthermore, I want to go ahead and point out that the charter states that before calling an election, council shall require an estimate of expenses be made, and the applicant deposit that amount with the city clerk. That amount is determined by the county, actually. That amount is $111,325, and EPCOR has deposited with the city clerk's office. So with that, I'll turn it back to Travis.
All right, fun stuff. So what and when is the election? I talked about it being November the 5th, 2024. And so what's being voted upon? A franchise agreement between EPCOR and the city of Peoria is what's being voted on. The agreement's in the packet that you have available. It defines the process for the city approval of EPCOR's lines to be constructed, maintained, and or relocated in the city right away. The term is 25 years beginning September 2025, so I am confident I will not be up here again talking about this agreement in 25 years. So. It also calls for a 2% fee on gross receipts, and it can't be transferred without the consent of the city council, the Peoria City Council and the Arizona Corporation Commission. And I'd also like to point out that EPCOR is in the audience if we've got any questions that we would like for them to address at some point. So the action before you is to call the election. And so the recommended action is to adopt Resolution 2445, referring a franchise agreement between EPCOR and the City of Peoria to the qualified electors of Peoria for their approval or rejection at the next general election to be held November the 5th, 2024. And the second part is to approve a budget amendment to appropriate the funds that EPCOR has deposited to pay the election expenses. With that, we are open to questions.
Councilor Schaefer.
Thank you, Mayor. Travis, quick question. I'm in favor of this going to the ballot. Here's my question, though. Because roughly those 2,200 residents that receive the EPCOR water and services, or some of them are in Mesquite District and Tierra del Rio, what happens if it doesn't pass? If the measure doesn't pass, it's not voted in by the citizens of Peoria, does Peoria provide those water services to those residents?
Actually, if that doesn't happen, the voters don't approve it, the city would have to discuss, and through the help of the city attorney's office, what instrument and what avenue that we could bridge that gap in service and how that would occur. I don't know if that's ever occurred before that I've witnessed here within the city or other cities, but we can check with the city attorney's office how that would occur and what instrument would need to be in place. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other further discussion. Council, do I have a motion to approve the agenda item 14R? Do I have a second? Second. Please vote.
Councilmember Dunn, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And it passes 7-0. Thank you. I now recognize City Manager Henry Darwin to introduce item 15R.
Mayor and council, addressing another one of the mayor and council's top priorities of economic development. Deputy City Manager Mike Faust is here yet again to discuss our development impact fees, land use assumptions, and infrastructure improvement plan adoption. We still have several steps in this process to go, as I understand it, and I think Mike will explain that to us. But tonight, we are seeking your approval to adopt the land use assumptions and the infrastructure improvement plans as part of the 2024 development impact fee update. So this is not the final step, but it is a required step in moving this process along. Correct?
Yes.
Please, take it away, Mike.
Mayor, City Council, before I jump in, I do want to just say a couple of thank yous real quick, and I do this each and every time, but we have run this team through the absolute paces since we were here a couple weeks ago. So I want to thank Anna Hudson from the Development Engineering team. She's here with us tonight, does an amazing job. And the consultant, who I normally don't thank consultants, but in this case I'm going to, Colin. The poor soul was on vacation in like Copenhagen or something like that, and we literally pulled him off his vacation with his family to run through the final steps here. And so I just want to put a lot of appreciation out because they've done a fantastic job. We've prepared 101 slides. I'm sorry, we only have 15 slides tonight. Everybody gasped, and it got quiet for a second.
Nobody was surprised by that, actually. So
nobody was. You have received, in preparation for this, the full report, all the other supporting. So we're only going to touch on the high levels tonight. As Manager Darwin had touched on, here's the schedule of events that have happened to get us to this point. When we were here last time, we did the public hearing for the land use assumptions and the infrastructure improvement plan. Tonight, we're going to go through just the changes that have been made, and then that will be the action that's taken. We'll be making a recommendation. You will be voting on whether to accept the land use assumptions and the IIP. Then, after the summer break, we're going to come back in August to have the discussions on the fee ordinance. So I just want to highlight tonight, you are not adopting the final impact fees. That happens in the fee ordinance, public hearing on August 20th, and then the October 1st hearing will be the actual setting of those fees. What we will talk about tonight, though, are the growth assumptions for the city. We will also touch on the projects which establish the maximum fee, because when you do all the math, it sets the max, and then you guys get to apply the political process in the fee ordinance setting. So fold in, we've only got about 10 slides, so this shan't take too long. This is the table you've seen. It remains unchanged. Ultimately, we're projecting a 20% growth over the next 10 years, roughly 10%, about 17,000 new homes. Again, no change since the first time we presented this to you. On the non-residential growth, again, same chart you saw, no changes, 20% growth, roughly 7,000 new jobs, 3.3 million square foot of industrial, office, retail space added. And again, no changes from what we've previously talked about. As we did on the May 7th hearing, every line that has an alteration has been highlighted. So if there's questions, more than happy to go through. I will highlight just a few of them. On police, and we'll see the same thing on fire, the land costs associated with the Joint Public Safety Facility in North Point, those land costs were adjusted from a plug. We had a number in there at $400,000 an acre. We have an actual cost number from the land developer at $290,000. That's the alteration that's been made. The 1.7 acres for the radio tower is just around the previous number is 1.67, so it's just a clerical correction. On the fire side, again, only the land cost had changed for the Joint Public Safety Building. I do want to highlight one piece of discussion that has come up, though. You'll see in station number 9. So if you're not familiar, station number 9 is the facility that's located at the lake. We currently operate, I believe it's a 2,800 square foot trailer there. I'll call it a trailer. It's a manufactured building. You see planned in this project 15,000 square foot building. So 81% is related to growth. So that means if we build a 15,000 foot building, we have to deduct the existing 2,800. There was a point of contention. How much of that building is actually supporting lake users or non-Peoria residents? Interestingly enough, when we pulled the data, 2/3 of the calls associated with that station are actually outside of the park. About 1/3 of the calls are inside of the park. And so when we looked at it, we've evaluated a handful of things. We felt comfortable leaving this growth number, what it was, but I wanted to highlight that because I can tell you it was surprising to me, that number. And as we build out the Peoria Innovation Core in that northern area of Peoria, we believe Fire Station 9 will be supporting there up until Fire Station 10, which is also called out in this improvement plan is constructed. On the water side, on the wastewater side and the water resources, no changes have been made. There was one subtle change on the wastewater side, which was an alteration to the utility billing system. At one point, it was like 100% associated with growth. It's not. It should only be 39% attributable to the growth of the city. Parks. Several changes. I told you we were here last time, right? We went in the same order. We said we're pretty aligned on police and fire and water, and we had a lot of work to do on parks and transportation. So we did a lot of work. Two major buckets of change here. The first being the land costs. So before we had $400,000 an acre in there, and we had some data behind that. Then what we did is we went and pulled some additional appraisal information. We went and spoke to the individual developers. We zeroed in and came with a more accurate and actual land cost number. The second activity we went after is we dove deep into the actual improvement costs for the parks. We originally had a number, I'm going off the top of my head, $1.23 million per acre of improvement. As we dug into it some more, we've refined that down to $1,075,000 per acre. Some would still contend that that number is high. I think we have a high standard for parks in our city, number one. Number two, ultimately, as we pull this money in, it lands inside the calculations. If we happen to generate more funds than are necessary, what'll happen is in the 2029 IIP, it'll balance out because you have to deduct the fund balance when you run the calculations. So we feel like it would equal out. Additionally, when we come back to 2029, we'll have more data on new parks constructed, so it gives us a better idea to adjust. So this number did come down. We feel pretty decent about that. Now, I told you last time we were here, we had a lot of work to do on roads. So when I flip to the next slide, you're going to see lots of yellow. I'll walk through it. If you got questions, feel free to ask. But a ton of energy and effort has been put into the transportation in particular. So this is the central zone. Central zone is, call it north of Happy Valley Road, east of the river. A couple of changes here. Lake Pleasant Parkway. This number is, the percent related to growth has oscillated a little bit. It was originally at 50, we pushed it up to 70%. We settled in at 60. And part of that is we know that we're only constructing this road because of growth. However, we also know that this road has some pass-through traffic. That's not just folks in our jurisdiction. So as we looked at it, it seemed reasonable. The team settled in on that number. The changes around Lone Mountain Parkway, so Lone Mountain Parkway from Lake Pleasant to 96th Avenue, 96th Avenue north and south from Dixoletta to Lone Mountain, then Dixoletta, just kind of this little C that gets formed over by Paloma Park. You see that a lot of those have been adjusted to 50% related to growth, and that was specific to those roads kind of dead end and service very specific future developments. So we said some of it has a general public benefit, some of it's development project specific, so those adjustments got made. And then zeroing down, the ones on the bottom side of the sheet, so like Joe Max, 83rd Avenue, 67th Avenue, what the team found in the estimates was, you'll notice in the number of lanes, there's adjustments because the 2 to 4 expansion already included some infrastructure that was built in the 0 to 2. So we put the stormwater and drainage inside of the 0 to 2 construction. It was in the estimate for the 2 to 4 expansion. So the team just backed those numbers out. The cost came down some. So again, still a heavy amount of construction area, almost $90 million worth of total projects, $60 million of that attributable to growth, adding about 200,000 miles of capacity to the system. A lot of work was done on this one, if you can't tell. So lots of yellow, and I guess it's an eye chart to see red on yellow. But I'm going to highlight a couple of things because this was a big point of contention between the development community and the home builders, and then us as a city trying to make sure that the right things were planned for. Kind of this upper 6 projects are really tying into a series of roads that connected Vistancia North to what was the Galvin alignment. So Galvin would run east out of off Vistancia through Saddleback Heights, connect to El Mirage and Lake Pleasant Heights, and then come back south of the canal. Essentially, when we talked to the developers, a few things were stated that made us change the totality of those projects. The first one was Saddleback Heights only intended to build to their eastern boundary and not all the way to El Mirage. There's a stretch of state land in there that's part of Lake Pleasant Heights. There is no plans to build that stretch of road right now. So as such, we ended that road at the eastern boundary. Then when we talked to Mystic, as their portion of Lake Pleasant Heights, they're gonna build the bridge over the canal, right? El Mirage Bridge over. But to connect to what would have been the Galvin alignment actually extended beyond their property. So we altered that arterial roadway to only go to the northern boundary. So that whole upper quartile right there is really that alignment alteration, changing road segment lengths, things like that. There's also some alterations in this middle section around 135th Avenue. Really that just broke apart a project that was in there as a larger section. It broke it apart and gave a little more definition as developments will lay in, and also was respective of what percentage of that is related to development specific versus growth related. And then as you go down, you see similar adjustments to Joe Max, similar adjustments to Dicehart. Those are relative to that 0 to 2 versus 2 to 4, and not all components being in the 2 to 4 expansion. And lastly, I'll just call out the traffic signals. We've showed you 3 versions of this. We showed you a version originally that had no traffic signals in it, but then we looked at some DAs and there was responsibilities to have traffic signals in it. And then the last version struck them out, and we've gone back and forth. And ultimately, what we've settled on is we have traffic impact analyses that say they're required. We have development agreements that say reimbursement is necessary. And as such, we've settled in that 50% of growth versus development was a reasonable conclusion. At the end of the day, the totality of this list of projects is $205 million, adding 450,000 miles of capacity to the system, which we think is a good representation of what's going to be necessary to build out the northern part of the city. I'm going to go back just for a sec to make this point, and then I'll go to the next one. Again, tonight, when we come with the recommendation, the vote is only relative to the land use assumption, right? We're going to grow by 20% over the next 10 years, and the list of projects that we've put in front of you. You're saying that this list of projects feels appropriate. That will set a maximum fee, but does not set the actual fee ordinance. We'll be back in August for that. So I say that because when we put up this slide, we did want to give you a snapshot of what that maximum supportable fee looks like for a single-family residential home. And I can tell you, looking at this, it passes the gut test at some level, and I'll tell you why. Is if we start at the bottom one and just look at it from park zones, because that divides the city up pretty cleanly. What this essentially says is if you were to construct a new home after these fees came into effect, and you're south of Bell Road, essentially $12,000 impact fee would be a charge to the southern part of the city. And ultimately, when we break that down, you can see parks, you would pay $700, roughly $700, $698 as a maximum. And that is the new community parks fee, the community and special use parks. So that adds new amenities to our special use and community parks. You'd have police and fire. You would pay no contribution to a roads impact fee because there's no roads projects in the southern part of the city. You'd pay no water resources fee because you're on SRP water. You are not on CAP water, so there's no water resource fee. The water has a fee, and then wastewater for wastewater expansion, reclamation movement, things like that. So your total would come up to about $12,000. As you move north into the city, you can see those fees start to go up. So in zone 1, so this is pretty much Bell Road to Happy Valley, you still have the same non-utility fees, but now you've added a water resource fee. So this is that Bartlett Dam project that's been added. You're on cap water, the Bartlett Dam project folds in. Again, moving north, zone 2, you're looking, this is zone 2 is north of Happy Valley Road, east of the river. So east of the river, north of Happy Valley, you see now the parks fee climbs because there's two very specific neighborhood parks in there. You see a roads fee, that's the central roads fee. And then you see the same roughly water and wastewater fees climbs up to $26,000. Now when you get west of the river is when the fees really start to go up. And the most highest contributing item to that is the roads. We've had a lot of discussion about roads. We know they're costly, especially north of the cap. But this does at least pass a gut test from the north to the south, east to the west of the city. There's more work to do in the next phase of the process, but for now, we only have this recommendation for you. So staff's recommending an adoption of the land use assumptions and infrastructure improvement plans developed as part of the 2024 development impact fee update. The calendar here is on the right again. Tonight you'll be voting on this, and then we committed to doing another stakeholder meeting with home builders and developers to discuss what suggestions will be made in the public hearing to you folks in terms of setting the actual fee ordinance. And with that, Mayor and Council, take any questions.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor, I have a motion to approve agenda item 15R.
So moved.
Do you have a second? Second. Please vote.
Councilmember Dunn, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Vote passes.
Passes 6-1. So for the next item on the agenda, staff has requested to continue the consideration of item 16R to a later date. We will move that to June 18th, 2024.
Mayor, we're going to need a vote.
Say again?
We're going to need a vote.
We needed to vote on that?
Yeah, so If you could just ask for a motion.
Can we just ask for a verbal vote to move agenda item 16R to June? Can we just do a verbal, or you want to just actual vote?
We need an actual vote.
All right. Do you have a motion?
I'll motion.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Please vote.
Councilmember Dunn, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
That passes 7-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda is call to the public. As a reminder, each speaker will direct his or her comments to the members of the governing body and not to any individual member or individuals present. Each speaker will refrain from personal attacks, foul, abusive language, and will maintain a civil and courteous manner and tone. Members of the audience will respect the rights of others and will not create noise or other disturbances that will disrupt or disturb the meeting. I have one item for a non-agenda item, which is Sybil de Marjano. I apologize, I'm probably not saying your name correctly. Right here. No, right there.
Good evening, Council. First, thank you for having the chance to be here tonight to listen to my concern as I am here to follow up on a conversation that I had with my district representative, Vice Mayor Edwards, last week, and a number of the members of the staff of the city were present as well. I am here to, as I do have concern about the access to my property. I currently live, and I'm sorry, I don't have a fancy presentation. I do live at 104 Avenue and Pinnacle Peak Road, and the access to my property is currently very precarious. I hereby ask Council to reinstate the road improvement project that would connect 102nd Avenue to 107th Avenue on Pinnacle Peak Road. I believe that was in the capital improvement project a number of years ago, and for some reasons was removed from the CIP. So all the plan, from my understanding, all the planning had been done and was approved, and that was supposed to have taken place some time ago. So anyway, as of today, I do not have any access from 107th Avenue. It's completely obstructed by enormous boulders. I have raised my concern, though, to the city. I have emailed. I've never filed a complaint with code, but I've emailed a number of times, as although there are boulders on the road, quad bikes, motorcycles still try to get over the boulders, around it. It really is very chaotic over there, and the road is certainly not safe, aside from the fact that I do not have my access to 107th Avenue. The access that I do have from coming westbound from Pinnacle Peak Road is 15 feet wide at this time. So I am isolated, and I do not have sound access to my property. I don't know, maybe you would care to speak to the garbage truck driver there who tries to come and empty my garbage every week. So I would like to, ask you here to open up the access to 107th Avenue so that I have safe and sound access to my property.
Okay. Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Thank you.
With that was the only speaker request, right? That was 16R, so we moved 16R, so, okay. So city manager's report?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few items to share with you this evening. The first is about a ribbon cutting. So Mayor Pro Tem Jennifer Crawford, Vice Mayor John Edwards, and Councilmember Bill Platena were present for Greystar's ribbon cutting, which took place on June 4th, marking the completion of 400,000 square feet of Class A, highly flexible industrial buildings at 79th Avenue and Grand. This is the first delivery within Greystar's 88-acre Peoria Place master plan, which will serve to continue to transform historic downtown Peoria with places to live, work, and play. I also wanted to announce two new family businesses in Peoria. Opening soon, the Pickle Guild, an indoor pickleball facility, which is now enrolling members for the location at 7586 West Thunderbird. The Pickle Guild is housed in a warehouse space acquired in 2023 to create a state-of-the-art pickleball facility spanning an impressive 20,000 square feet. This is an exciting milestone as it brings one of the first indoor pickleball facilities to the Northwest Valley. The second I'd like to announce is the Slick City Action Park. It's opening at the same location, or near the same location. It's an indoor entertainment center designed for action-packed fun for all ages. Occupying over 36,000 square feet, it features indoor slides, a trapeze, and zip line. Oh, Kevin didn't have to travel all the way to Costa Rica for a zip line. There are also courts for basketball, dodgeball, and other sports, plus a dual-level party space, food and beverages at the Slick City Cafe. Welcome to Peoria. The other item I want to talk about is something I know that there's a lot of public interest in, and we are, as you all are aware, in the process of collecting data and evaluating the potential for a Peoria Air Park. A preliminary economic impact assessment estimates the Peoria Air Park could bring close to $1 billion in annual impact, nearly 8,000 jobs, and over $60 million annually to state and local taxes. But it's important to remember this is a multi-year evaluation process. We are not on the precipice of making a decision, but we are, along the way, committed to sharing the latest information, and we'll do so again in a webinar scheduled for Thursday, June 27th at 6:30 p.m. During this webinar, Assistant City Manager Rick Buss and Deputy City Manager Mike Faust and Mike Quick from Kaufman Associates, our consultant, will be there to answer questions related to the feasibility studies and discuss some of the project background for the next phase of our analysis related to the site selection study, which is currently being evaluated and created by Kaufman Associates. We really do encourage the public to submit questions in advance. The links are on the slide here, and because we want time to make sure that we're providing the most accurate and complete answers as possible. We ask that those questions be submitted by 5 p.m. Monday, June 24th, and this will, once again, allow staff to prepare complete and accurate answers to any questions. We are planning yet another opportunity for questions and answers for late August, where we'll be exploring the why behind the decision to evaluate the need for an air park in Peoria, including a video discussing the economic impacts anticipated by the air park. Once again, the public will have an opportunity to submit questions in advance, and we will be releasing specifics when we get closer to that next following webinar in August. I'd also like to welcome Jeff Curran. There he is. Please raise your hand again, Jeff. Jeff is our new Development Engineering Director. He brings over 35 years of experience in development, and he's demonstrated the leadership qualities and values we expect in Peoria leaders here. During his career, he spent a significant time as a consulting engineer, development consultant, owner's representative, business executive, and as a developer owner. Welcome, Jeff. But I also want to share my appreciation and gratitude for Dan Nissen. I think Dan's hiding in the back there. Raise your hand, please, Dan. I know how much you love recognition. Dan's quite the sport, and this is the third time in his illustrious, you guys threw that in there to throw me, but it is true. His illustrious tenure that he stepped in and filled in the director position. We really are grateful for you, Dan, for what you've done over the past several months. And I know that Jeff's nodding, so Jeff is probably already the beneficiary of all that great hard work you've done. And also the team. It's not easy having an interim leader and helping us through the recruitment process. We really do thank you for your commitment and your efforts. Want to talk just briefly about something that has been instituted in the city of Peoria over the last couple of years. And this is an employee engagement survey that we have performed to gauge basically the health of leadership and management's engaging our employees, connecting them to the work that we do here in the city of Peoria. I'm very pleased to report our overall engagement score has improved. It went from 4.04 to 4.16. That puts us in the 81st percentile of all organizations that use this Gallup poll with over 1,000 employees. So we are doing very well. And in addition, we had over 87% of our employees, or 87% of our employees that participated in the survey. So we really have a good handle on how engaged employees are with the work they're doing here with Peoria. And the biggest improvement is in our ratio between our employees that are engaged and those who are actively disengaged. We went from 5.2 engaged to actively disengaged to 7.1 employees who are engaged to those who are actively disengaged. That's really great news for the city of Peoria. That's really great news for management and leadership. But it's also really shows that we are listening to what our employees are asking from leadership and management. And this last year, they asked us to focus, through the survey, they asked us to focus better and more so on employee recognition and acknowledgement of the hard work that our employees do. And we spent a lot of time and effort, especially our HR department, over the last year, and we're seeing results in the survey. Does that mean we're done and we're not doing more for our employees? No. We will be taking the results from this survey, rolling up our sleeves again, and finding different ways and better ways to fully engage our employees to make Peoria a really great place to work. But this is good news. We improved in every one of the 12 questions that were asked of our employees. So that really is an indication that leadership and management are listening, and we're trying to make Peoria a better place to work. Speaking of a better place to work, our City Hall is about to go through a pretty significant set of activities related to a roof replacement and some overall maintenance of the building. So those of you who frequent City Hall will see a lot of scaffolding, and we'll be doing it in 2 phases. The first phase starting in July, with 2/3 of the building and continuing into November. The remaining third of the building will start in November and continue this into the spring. And we're just anticipating some impacts from the holidays and weather along the way. Will still be accessible, completely accessible to public and staff. And we're going to be using the location of the old fountain to stage a lot of the contractor's equipment and the materials needed to complete the work, so you will see some activity there. And then once completed, we should be good for the next 30 years, and it represents a $2.5 million investment into one of our most important civic buildings. And then last but certainly not least, I wanted to invite residents of Peoria and the rest of the West Valley to join us for our big backyard barbecue, the Peoria's All-American Festival on July 4th at the Stadium Complex. It's our annual Independence Day event. with a variety of free, family-friendly entertainment, including live music, including an 80s new wave tribute band. They must have done that for me. They're the Spasmatics. We'll have a lot of outdoor games, exciting BMX performances, and a superhero stunt team. We'll have a wide selection of food and the best fireworks show in the state of Arizona. You see the website there for more information. Please, I encourage you all of you out there watching, to come participate in our annual 4th of July festival. With that, Mayor, that's my report for the evening.
All right, thank you. So try to keep this short. So last week we celebrated the 70th anniversary of being an incorporated city. In the last 20 years, we've doubled in size and the overall population. As a city, we set to achieve smart, responsible, and long-term growth for many years to come. And I think you see in all the staff's work what we're trying to put together from a infrastructure, water, wastewater, engineering. We definitely have some amazing employees that are putting lots of time and energy into the future of this city. We on the dais are essentially the board of directors. The people that actually get this done are the city employees. And from all of us up here, we definitely appreciate all of everybody's hard work and the sacrifice and dedication to what you do for the city and our neighbors. So I'm going to kind of reflect back here for a second. Last week I was fortunate enough to go back I've tried to go take the family back to Normandy, France every 5 years. I was in 2019. We went, and there were 12 of us. And then this trip, we decided to grow it to 27. That's not because I have more kids. I have enough, or more grandkids, because I don't have grandkids yet. But I'm sure they will be coming soon. Just to kind of reflect back on the 80th anniversary, the difference between 5 years is the amount of people we've lost. We've lost a generation because the generation is growing older, and frankly, there were not as many survivors over the last 5 years of veterans that had survived or participated in D-Day. We met a few that were on the beach. We were on, my family and I spent a lot of time on what's called Gold Beach, which is where the British and Canadians landed. And we were talking about this earlier. 5 years ago, I met one of the only surviving, one of the surviving members of a group that had played the bagpipes during the invasion. One of 11 from the Scottish bagpipers. And the gentleman was still alive with his son, who was the head of the Scottish bagpipers for the military back in 2019. And one of the things that we were able to watch was his ashes being spread. The gentleman that passed away over the last couple of years, he was one of 11, and this just kind of an example, right? And to see the community and people from all over the world come to Normandy and actually participate and wear American uniforms and Screaming Eagle patches from the 101st and the 82nd, and being able to actually walk the beach. I've never seen the level of participation from people that are non-Americans that do more American things that I wished our whole country could actually participate and actually see. It is an absolute honor to the men and women that actually served in our military during that invasion, and the men and women that were lost during that period of time, but truly showing the ultimate sacrifice for not only our country, but for people around the world, and democracy, frankly, around the world. If we chose a moment in time, the invasion of D-Day was one of those significant moments that changed the world. And I think it's very important for us to not only study our history, but also study the sacrifice of the men and women that actually gave not only their lives, but their time and it's a very hallowed ground. It's very important for us to be able to try to experience that. And if you have the opportunity to watch some videos around it, and I'm not talking about Band of Brothers, although that's a great film, but actually the history of everything from Point to Hawk to Juneau and Sword, and look at the beaches of where these men had to cross to be able to take back Europe and be able to essentially save the world from destruction and the direction it was going. The true American spirit is not only all over those beaches and the blood spilled all over those beaches, but it's in the men and women that are actually wearing American uniforms up and down those beaches when you walk up to somebody and they're from Belgium or France or Norway, Polish. I ran into more veterans or more civilians wearing American World War II uniforms that didn't speak English at all. And it's absolutely incredible because they understand the freedoms that were actually gained by the sacrifices of the men that actually gave their blood on those beaches. So very important. Lastly, the last council meeting, we had to unanimously pass the FY 2025 budget. Very proud of the budget that we put together, and undoubtedly the priorities of public safety, economic development, and water security are the key principles of where we're going. We added 31 new positions to support police and fire, including 2 more SLOs, school resource officers. We allocated nearly $15 million for the downtown revitalization efforts to continue, which we had a meeting about today. It's going to be absolutely incredible. I'm super proud of the work that the city is doing to make this happen and really see how fast this is going. It's going to be incredible. It's one of the things that we talked about early on. We also funded $737.6 million. Let me just repeat that number because that is massive. $737.6 million in our 10-year CIP for water and wastewater projects. That is absolutely historic for not only our city, but for the entire West Valley. And it's going to make big changes and allow us to be able to do a lot of incredible things. So thank you for staff's efforts in putting everything together. I know we've said this the last meeting, but it's very important. Everybody, all the city employees that are actually participating in this and actually make this happen. HR, you guys are incredible because you keep bringing in totally kick-ass employees, and we really appreciate all the effort. There's no other way to say that. That's just the way it is. So, right? It's just the way it works. So, really thank you for everybody's efforts, and let's adjourn. Appreciate it.